Good evening, good people. What's going on? Still working out some tech, get us online, get going. All right. So tonight's show we're gonna have a discussion about, um, you know, jealous parents and the impacts to the family. And let's the people get in here. Let's get going. Uh, how's everything been? Wednesdays come around very quickly, don't they? So I appreciate everybody that had time to tune in to the last couple of episodes. If you haven't already, go follow me on YouTube. As a matter of fact, I'm going to drop the link to the channel over here, and so you guys can come support the platform. So I want to talk about tonight and unhealthy competition. Negative environments that exist between jealous parents and the impacts to the family. Um, got this topic out of a suggestion from my brother, Mr. Camper, and Jamar Camper. Go follow him. And we were talking about stagnant podcast topics, and he threw out a couple. So I started digging, and took the idea a little bit further. And I wanted to be able to talk about, you know, how jealousy damages the parent-child relationship, and anything that you could think of that comes with that. Because a lot of times, parents are, trying to, do the best they can with what they know. And it is hard not to put your spin of, what it takes to teach someone something. And in that, you have to, do a lot of ego management, putting yourself in the other person's shoes and how well they receive you or not. So I wanted to read this before we go a little bit further. I probably, peek back at it a couple times. But as a matter of fact, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put it up on the screen with um, docs, so we can work through it together, and you guys can see what I see, and we can stay on task with the same discussion. So, hang on a second. Mm, all right. So, all right. So, um, jealous parents. Jealousy, it damages the parent-child relationship. When parents are jealous of their children's accomplishments or successes, it can create a rift in the relationship. The child may feel that their achievements are not appreciated or recognized by their parent, leading to feelings of resentment and distance. It creates unhealthy competitive environment. Parents who are jealous of their children often create competitive environments that can be damaging to both the parent and the child. This can lead to the child feeling that they need to constantly prove themselves and can cause anxiety and stress. It can stunt the child's growth and development. When parents are jealous of their children, they may not provide the support and encouragement needed for the child to grow and develop. This can limit the child's potential and block generational blessings, as they may not have the resources or opportunities to reach their full potential. It sets a negative example for the child. Children learn by example, and when parents display jealousy towards them, it can set a negative example for the child. The child may adopt this behavior and become jealous of others, leading to a cycle of negativity and jealousy. It can lead to a lack of trust. When parents are jealous of their children, it can lead to a lack of trust in the relationship. The child may feel that they cannot share their successes or accomplishments with their parent, leading to a breakdown in communication and a lack of emotional support. This can further hinder the child's growth and development and block generational blessings. So that's something that I kind of just um, played around with and threw some words at it. Not just any words, but words that kind of bring full context to the picture you're trying to paint when we think about in what situation would parents be jealous of their children. But it happens. And I don't think that, that is a topic that's, always open for discussion for everyone. But what do you think? Do you have an experience with anything like that? Um, I definitely think when you start uh, focusing on like the accomplishments and successes that you've seen parenting that is too hands on. It's almost strange, but then you draw a line in the sand because every child isn't parented the same way. Every parent doesn't have the same experience. When you start getting a better understanding of you know who's looking out for the best interest of the child. I think when you have the opportunity to validate your kids and their accomplishments and anything that you see them work hard for, any human wants to be acknowledged. Um, I think we put a lot of stuff on adults, but the habits and that we have, they stem from a younger version of ourselves. Somewhere not being validated in one way or another. Either you spend life where nobody listens to you, or nobody takes you seriously. You're gonna have a different type of behavior on stuff. You're gonna find the difference is finding a way to channel it into something productive. So, because it's too easy to get caught up in an unhealthy situation because you don't know how to transmute your frustrations into something of value, something that really captures who you are and what you've worked to become. So, um, jealousy damages the parent-child relationship. That's just in a nutshell. The um, the unhealthy competitive environment, like the the whole nature of it is it's not a place that you want to be. It's it's not the place that you just want to be because you don't want to work in a toxic environment. And if you have to, you want to be able to balance that with an environment that's the opposite of it. Because sometimes, yeah, you just got to take what your environment gives you. But if you create um, a lot of negative competition with those that look for your acknowledgement and your praise and support, they're gonna go seek it elsewhere. It's just human nature. They're gonna go where they can be validated in some way. Like-minded people find each other. So you got to be careful about how much of tough love or what type of relationship you hope to have between you and your child, and like what are you doing to foster that? Because that's up to you. That's on nobody but you. So we'll move on. You know, how do we recognize, you know, when we create unhealthy competition, how do we recognize and acknowledge it when it's, present? Like, can you take outside opinion? Can you really accept somebody else's criticism and how they observe the way that you parent, how they observe the way you have impacts on other people? Is it being done in a righteous way? Is it being done for the general well being of the child? You got to have a lot more objectivity when you want to improve, and everyone has to self improve in order for things to keep going. It's just the natural course of things in evolution. If it serves your well being in your everyday life, you're gonna work to improve the things that already work. You just want to get more efficient, right? Well, in that, it's gonna have to come down to when you work on yourself. Being, if you are a parent, it's part of who you are, and even though you're not a parent, if you're not a parent, what we're talking about here mostly is leadership. This is about, taking the active role in guiding, someone that's depending on you to a successful outcome. The desire is for the child to experience validation of their efforts early, so it can become useful, because experience is what we all draw from when we make the decisions that we make until we end up in a situation we've never seen before. But if you've already got the experience, the stories, and the comparable experience, why not share it? Like, again, people gonna make their own mistakes, but they don't have to make the same mistakes you made. Now, if they do it after you've, put them in position to make a better decision than you did, then that's on them. But you have to find a way to unburden yourself. So creating unhealthy competition with um, with your kid, or creating friction, is a poor investment for a long term positive outcome. So you got to figure out what are you doing, and how do you recognize it, acknowledge it, and then what do you do after that? What's the solution? How do you offset it? And I think that just takes time, knowing the personality, and acknowledging that, hey, we could do better. Do you want to do better? Because we have to. This is about leadership at all times. Anytime that I'm speaking, it's not about exactly what you should do for your specific situation, but there has to be a tone of leadership when it comes down to correcting the situation. And it can't wait until it goes beyond your capacity to deal with, because then it's still going to be your problem anyway. So put your foot down and figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. But what we can't do is create the unhealthy competitive environment, because parents who are jealous of their children often create environments that can be damaging. They can break each other because there's no greater disconnect than the one that you can have from a parent. Excuse me, I apologize for clearing my throat. Um, so we're moving on. We're talking about the other effects, impairment of the child's growth and development, and how do we avoid it? Well, communication is always woven into such a topic. The impairment of the child's growth and development is what we want to avoid, and one of the things that any human being should avoid is being a burden to another human being, especially an able-bodied, capable human being. There's a big difference in that. You have a different type of onus. So what do you do to avoid, you know, letting your personal um, motivations overshadow the real um, objective here, and that's the overall well-being, the general welfare, the environment being healthy enough so that child can learn from you. So you got to look at what's in your environment that is a distracting you. What's the logistics of your day like? And if it's taxing for you, it's taxing for other people that support you. And you have to figure out how to make yourself more available. All of this comes down to being available to lead. There's a lot of people that are in roles to lead, but they are not available. So if you're not available, you just got a title. And that's not because it's um, true as a fact, but it's true in practice. The best ability is availability. So if you're in a situation where you're not as available as you need to be, that's going to impact you, you know. And if it impacts you, it impacts everybody. So this is why personal growth is so important. Sometimes you have to strive for greater income, a greater chance for success with a place that has a little bit more upward mobility, so you can um, be able to be more available. So you have to keep working so you can create more efficiency and more availability in your relationships, all the way down to your kid. And how do we avoid it? You just, man, you got to keep working. You got to find a way to put distance between you and people that benefit more off of you than you benefit from them. Because once you draw that distinction, you'll know where to put your time, your effort, your resources, what to cut back, what sacrifices are necessary and what adjustments need to be made. But that's kind of hard to do when you're not available. I know this is an ideal scenario, and that's why the words are very fluid, because what that looks like varies from person to person. So I don't want to tell you to, like everybody should quit their job and just go do something that's similar. Like, nah, that's not the case. You gotta take inventory of your own resources and figure out what works for you and what doesn't, because you got to figure out what that looks like. And to get something you never had, you got to do something you never done. So how to avoid it is, I think you definitely got to get more available so you can, so you so nurturing is sometimes put, well, the onus of nurturing is sometimes put on to women. That's a thing that women are supposed to be for. But leadership is nurturing too. Correction is nurturing, because anybody that's invested in you being able to maximize your five senses so you can survive in the world, because you're only responsible for you, that's nurturing. So in leadership, to avoid impairment of the child's growth and development, you have to nurture an environment that makes you more available. You got to cultivate these things. So moving on, number 4, definitely sets negative examples for the child. And we're going to talk about, like, what are some of the solutions. But the negative examples, right? So if you set an environment that a child gets raised in negative competition, you're going to deal with a lot of need to be right to a dangerous level, like to a point where all you're going to have is unstable environments, especially if you have that mixed in with the general human emotions of, being vulnerable, and anything that just foments distrust. If it's always competitive and you never get a break, you just have a unhealthy competition at all times, and that's not an environment that fosters peace. Nobody thinks about competition and peace at the same time. So the negative examples that get set that the child is going to draw from that experience, they're going to carry that with them everywhere they go. Yeah, it's great to be competitive. It is. But when you're competitive in an unhealthy way, sometimes sportsmanship is out the window or it doesn't even get to the table. But what you end up doing is you setting a all or none type of mentality. And that's good and it is useful when it's needed. But it's going to be very difficult to have uh, quality reciprocal relationships, networks. You're going to be, at some point, you're going to be kind of hard to work with or not. It just depends on the temperament of the individual. But there's a lot to be drawn from it. But tonight we're speaking about the negative examples because you don't know what type of energy that comes with or for a sustained period of time. Like what we do here is a butterfly effect on other people. It seems small to us, but the example that people draw from it and they use, it becomes a template for what they do. And a lot of times, I get it. Everybody should be their own person, but most people are emulating somebody else's emulation. So they got to start somewhere until they know what right looks like. So that's why everybody should be a little bit more accountable for how they put themselves out in front of others because it it tailors the type of respect that you're going to be able to command. Definitely, because you don't never want to be in a situation where your ignorance is captured and you're the one that's uncoachable and you're the one that's not receptive to an objective opinion when somebody's genuinely concerned about you. So, um, what are some of the solutions? Mentorship, um, believing that if you know that nobody's perfect and then the world isn't perfect and we teach by example and lead by example, then somebody needs to be able to observe your example that you're setting. And if you really want to be better at it for the right reasons, you're going to take that criticism constructively and implement some change, some adjustments. Because if you want to get better, then you're going to be part of conversations where you're asking more questions than correcting. So these are the signs that you want to avoid falling into um, a statistical situation where now you're on the other end of being a part of an unhealthy competition, creating organic obstacles for your children and making them hard to work with for some in some cases, and maybe creating some built-in anxiety moments for them later down the line for them mentally. The stuff it pushes you because all you have to go off of is what you've been told. You don't know you're wrong until you don't know you're wrong. So the other thing was number 5: impedes a culture of trust. Integrity is paramount in a parental relationship. I think that you got to wear your scars at some point, and I think people respect scars. I think scars come with a story that always has an alternative ending because it could have went way differently, good, bad, or indifferent. I think you gotta let your kids see your scars. I think that it gives them just one more perspective before they get ready to make a decision, good, bad, or indifferent. You know, Will it come down with their time? Who they spend their time with? What they spend their money on? Things of that nature. Because you have to discover your purpose. Because if you come from a culture of distrust, you're gonna move in a world and be consistently attracted to situations where trust is very subjective. And I know it's subjective for a lot of people, but like there's some people that ain't got no code, man. They will throw you under a bus and not think anything of it because you were just um, a cost of doing business. Because the relationship is transactional, meaning that um, you're just doing what's legal and not necessarily what's moral. I heard today that uh, guy made a connection between he was trying to state the value of men in a relationship and how important it is to balancing out conversations that are about unhealthy competition inside of a house. And his and shout out to Cooley over on the No Fugazi podcast. He said that women raise adults, and then men raise other men and ladies. And he explained it in his own way. But what I got from it was that the pieces that both parents have very complementary pieces that are very vital to the child's ability to understand the world that they're in. And the way that that's communicated makes it come to the child either faster or slower. It determines the speed in which they accept it. Being able to apply it later on is going to be situation dependent, but they got to accept it first, or at least hear it, so they can at least have a critical battle with themselves about whatever it is. And this could come in any kind of form: religion, it can come in books, it can come in therapy, you know what I'm saying, proven experience, or whatever. But the integrity of the relationship has to create an environment where one person can be heard when the other person is speaking, and the other person can trust what the person is saying and be open to being receptive and coachable to make better adjustments so they can take full advantage of the person's experiences telling the situation or observing rather. That is so rare to find in general when you get good people in your life that want to see you win. It's hard to get that story understood until you have it yourself, because up until you have to make certain decisions in life, you think everybody's just like you based on your zip code, wherever you go to school, whatever familiar circles that you run in. You know, you think because you see each other, you got to have something in common outside of just bumping into each other, and that's going to be relative to your activities. So you got to think about where you are when you meet certain people, where you draw your perception of what you think trust is is your version of what trust is the same as the other person who has less experience and maybe is less likely to trust, or is the person more than willing to trust? You affect that person's discernment with how you handle the potential negative competition that you could be experiencing, or could be um, creating. So integrity is paramount in a parental relationship, because that version of integrity that you're learning or teaching, you're going to reflect that in your relationships, platonic, business, and your associate relationships. there's a general perception um, that is going to be associated with you and your reputation based on your personal integrity, your personal accountability, and that's going to scale your value up, down, or whatever. But this is why the the culture of trust is so vital, because that's the difference between you know somebody going out in the world and saying you are not the father. It really is. If you got people that are raised in those types of environments, if it's normal to them and they can withstand you know um, the the brutal corrections that might come with their actions and their choices, some people are comfortable with just making mistakes and always being corrected and being admonished. Some of them are okay with that because it gives them an out. They're going to be able to say, well, you're right, and I'm just going to take it, and you know because they are used to being uh, beat into submission, to put it lightly. But mostly they're used to not being good enough. So then they take that into the world. They take that into their relationships, and they are constantly sabotaging themselves. So if you don't create the solid culture of trust, who's going to be able to do it for them? Because you have to think about, are they going to be able to accept anybody else's version of trust? Can they accept yours? Do they know what's real? And can you accept what's real? That your child is not like you, is is not automatically going to have every single piece of your situational awareness. And it just took you up to this point to realize that too. So it is a pride versus ego thing, because you're going to say, you can't say on one hand how intelligent the kids are and be proud of them and champion them for that, and then doubt that they will be able to process you telling them the 100% truth, and and if it's coming from an accountable place. Because sometimes it ain't about honesty. Sometimes it's just about accountability. Um, I think it's a lot of pressure on certain words, and then the words dictate the conversation, and it makes it difficult for some people to share or accept. But you got to think about how important the integrity is in the connection that you have, based on the role that you have, based on the responsibility, and based on the situation. In in the integrity piece, I think one of the things that you have to be really, really, really able to accept in just this particular space is that sometimes you got to know how to take an L. You got to know, what I'm saying. You got to be able to say, you got I lost this time, but you're supposed to lose at some point, because you can't appreciate the wins. There's no incentive if you don't take an L from time to time. And sometimes when you take an L, you learn something else. I mean, isn't that the goal? We got to find a way to, always improve, because we can't be better if we aren't challenging ourselves. We can't expect people to come in and create challenges for us. This is what we know. So, hey, to everybody that's tuned in, do me a favor and make sure you guys click the like button, and follow this podcast on YouTube. And we every week, we come back with a different topic. And this week it's about jealous parents. Well, yeah, jealous parents do this to their families, and they destroy them. They make it hard. They can, but they don't have to. none of us are perfect, and neither is the environment. But you always have to examine the intent when you want to identify what does jealousy look like. You have to think about the person's intent, with what they say, the timing, what they do. That right there is a test of the integrity of the parent, the integrity of, you know, the child also, because whatever accountability that's in the parent is going to reflect in the child, especially if it's active parenting. Now, I get everybody's situation isn't the same. It's not even about that. We're just talking about how does the behavior play out, because the behavior tells the story in, if not all cases. And this is observable. When you look at people's outcomes, you can, pretty much understand where their boundaries are, how far they willing to go. You know, some people, in one of the traits of being jealous, um, is always met with unhealthy competition. Like, what is the fight about? It's generally about nothing about nothing that'll matter in 2 to 5 years. Then you get situations where, what was the restaurant? Was it Sweetie Pies? And the son ended up, you know, killing one of the family members for some insurance money. And then he got locked up. Like, what kind of situation was going on to where he, felt the need to uh, delete one of his own family members and risk his own freedom to get locked up? Like, what kind of unhealthy competition is that? The Menendez brothers. What was that? I mean, we don't know if it was um, if the parents of the Menendez brothers displayed any jealousy, but undoubtedly there was a level of competition in the house that created, you know, a situation where the children kill their parents. And uh, there's a line in a song from Trick Daddy. It said, "If you don't raise your kids right, they'll grow up and shoot you." And then I think about, like the Menendez brothers, and I'm thinking about, like, it's just countless stories of just and jealousy between, you know, parents and their children. Seen in most Hollywood plots, you know, and then more importantly, we've seen it in tangible situations such as our own families, and it doesn't really get understood right away in most cases, but at some point, it's gonna be seen as nothing but competition, nothing but jealousy. Jealousy is the way to categorize when people are going at each other for unhealthy outcome, or somebody else is in a fight and doesn't even know that the other, like, one person's in a fight, the other person has no idea that there's a fight taking place. You know, you got to look at what's the intention of most people when they are going at something or trying to achieve a goal. What's their standard? You know what I'm saying? What is the standard that um, for success they are obtaining, and what are they willing to do to get it? Can they accept criticism in their plans? Are they receptive and coachable? Are they even receptive and coachable to anybody else, or is it just you? Is your time up for this phase in that person's life and their story? Have you reached a point where maybe you just need to sit back and let things play out? These are all the conversations that, that are routinely had once you're focused on the outcome being a healthy one, because it's bigger than you, it's bigger than what you can understand, And generally speaking, it's going to be on the individual to go live out their purpose and match their expectation with their effort, because you've had your time and they need to have their own experience. There's only so much you can guide them to do. And so, what you don't want to do is force your will where it is not received, especially if you've, arrived to a point in your life where it's time to test your parenting. If they can stand on what they want and be able to speak towards it in a healthy way, and it don't require as much of your resources, and they made their own decisions to commit to, gotta let them go, because that's the best way to show that you trust them. Is you can bump heads with them, but when you let go, they're gonna have to respect it one way or another, because it's up to them. They know the access that you created for them, and you have never been in their way to steer them down the wrong path. You know, so it's time to trust your parenting, because if you sat down and you created the environment of trust, then it should be time to sit back and watch it play out the right way. You gotta trust it. What's up, Tony? I see you. Hey man, if you available, hey, you more than welcome to come on if you got time. Let me go ahead and get the link for it. My man run the CEO Youth League and focused on mentoring these young men and uh, getting them ready for the world. So check him out. Matter of fact, I know he just opened up the House of Resources. I've been meaning to get him on here. I don't know if he got an availability, but he got the link now. Let's see what we got. Yeah, this is about trust though. All of this whole conversation is about trust, because jealousy is cancerous. There's like, it's hard to get back to a place of like real trust, real authentic, no ulterior motives, and you can stay on your purpose. When you operate out of your purpose, it forces objectivity. You need it in order to be of service. In order to be genuinely of service, and it coming from a transparent place, a place where you want uh, healthy outcomes for other people that surround you, so they can take that energy into their home and they can benefit from the overflow that you contributed to. Jealousy takes all that away. Jealousy takes you away from opportunities. Like, think about that. What positive thing can come out of you operating in a place of jealousy, in an unhealthy competition? Like, there's nothing about that that speaks to me that I want to go try. Like, competing for access to people that you control, can never possess, superficial realities, you know, is everything that surrounds the word jealousy is nothing that I want to be repeating 12 months from now, 12 minutes from now, 12 seconds from now. It's just not useful. And I think when you have a decent level of emotional intelligence, you can see it plainly, because if you're not operating in that, it looks weird. It looks out of place. And you could tell when a person knows that they operating in it, because they look like they're seen. Because even deep down, they know that they could be doing a better job at what they're doing. They're doing some makeup, sudden type decisions. It's all reactive, and you can just kind of get a good picture of what is the regular routine. What do you reinforce? Because behavior is about the things that you reinforce. So if you cultivate an environment for limited accountability, you don't have a tough time trying to create trust. Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. Hey Tony, if you can hear me, go in your settings. Mm, yeah. This is what these are the components of what it takes to lead. You can't create environments where trust is always an issue. Basic trust, integrity, things that allow you to put your food down somewhere and not worry about if somebody's going to mess with your personal belongings, your safety. Mm, yeah. So I can't type and talk like I used to. You want to be able to prepare to be able to recognize, who's going to hurt them in the world, or how to, so at least so they can protect themselves. But if you give them the lessons that the world is going to teach them at a disadvantage from the place where they're supposed to be protected, how successful can you expect their outcomes to be? Are you where you want to be with your behavior? And come down to it. And when you think about that and you ask it that way, you got to look at, you know, are they going to repeat my behavior? Are they going to, be emboldened by my discipline? Because they don't have to make any mistakes. Well, they're going to make some, but they don't have to make the same ones you made. You know, that's what being of service is about. Is always putting somebody else in a good position so they don't have to fail. That is what leaders should be doing in general. That's the way I function because there's somebody out there that's doing exactly what I need them to do. Something that I wish I knew how to do. Probably could learn, but it would take more time for me to break away and go learn it. So I invest in people that are doing something that's in line with my purpose because I can benefit from that too. And because if they feel empowered, we all win. You have to take that into every relationship that relies on your participation. You have to add value. So if you create a culture of dishonesty, we should be able to create we should be responsible for creating a culture of trust. You sending some people back because at a minimum, people need to know they're going to be safe. But if they can't identify what's safe and unsafe, they're going to base that picture, how they get those assessments, probably from you and how you handle things. I know it's unfair to say because everybody's got their own individual life, but you just can't escape this piece of it because that's just factual. That's why people will be quick to discuss the home training of the individual. Everybody has the same home training. So, and we know what that looks like from person to person. And because we know what that looks like, you can't run from it. You can't dismiss it. You have to consider it as being part of the whole. And overall, this is what jealousy does to a family. It puts us in a conversation like this right here, talking about basic things that we need to work on. Trust, it destroys, it gets all the way down to the bottom. So that's my take on tonight's topic. I'm gonna leave it open for a few minutes and discuss some other um, things that we got going on. Um, while we're here, we'll go ahead and put up the book so you guys go check it out. man, look, if you're interested in reading more about some of what I've already discussed tonight, go check out my book, The Code. It is on Amazon right now. I appreciate the people that have written reviews, um, and giving me some time and feedback. I wrote this book in 2018, and um, pre-COVID, and things are a whole lot different when you think about pre-COVID in 2018 to where we are right now in 2023. 5 years has gotten here really quick. So, um, you guys go check out the code and get some more insight into you know the way I think, the way I conceptualize my ideas, and what what makes sense. And also, while you're there, make sure you click the follow page right there from my author page. What else we got? You can check out my bio, find out a little bit more about me, and you can also go purchase The Business of Me. This is my second book. I published it in 2020, and it's another insight on how I conceptualize my ideas, talking about your past and how you use it to bring light to your future. And shout out to Shirley the Tour and who else? There was so many people that worked with me on this right here, um, and my friend Shonda Kerr too, who did a lot of reading and proofreading and editing, and helped me bring this thing to fruition. Yeah, you guys go check those out. Um, what else I got going on? So yeah, um, I also left links for my consulting, so you guys can check that out if you want to get a one-on-one session with me. We could talk about some real estate. We could talk about some business mindset, some motivational stuff, and we could just, have a better understanding of what it takes to be the best versions of ourselves every day. Because everything I'm talking about what I see other people do. It's about making a better version of who I am. Um, this has been another episode of Code Talk, the Accountable Masculinity platform, and I greatly appreciate you guys that show up from week to week. And if you can't get here during a live broadcast, of course you catch the rebroadcast. It's over on YouTube, and look out for some edits and look out for some shorts. And we'll see you next week. I'm out.